Hey there, fellow stressors. Welcome to the Stress Mess Podcast. I'm Samantha Elizabeth, the founder and master coach at Samantha Elizabeth Coaching and Consulting. As a self-proclaimed stress mess, I've discovered the true gravity of stress and its sneaky influence on every aspect of our lives. A couple years ago, I had a health scare caused by too much stress, and after my doctor's orders to stop stressing, I went on a journey to uncover the secrets of stress management. Join me and my guests on this unfiltered journey from stress mess to stress less. You're listening to episode 2 where I talk to Donna Durbin. Donna is a clear English coach. She teaches others to speak clearer so people can understand them, which is her own business. As I know, having your own business can be stressful. You often don't have a lot of help to navigate the technology, business taxes, your own procrastination, and being a perfectionist, or detail-oriented, as Donna calls it. So how do you deal with this kind of stress? Let's find out. All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's so nice to have you, on the podcast and, talk about your stress and your stress management and everything that you do to basically stress less. So do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about what kind of stress do you have in your life? And
Okay. Well, I think the last 2 weeks, the stress was the technology, was my learning platform had migrated to a new platform. So a lot of the bells and whistles and things were different. And I found out that like some of the coursework, the coursework was there, but like the sign up sheet was not there, or the ways people could enroll was not correct. So it changed some of the things, plus it looked different. So I had to go in and try to like familiarize myself with it. And so I was really kind of stressing with that. And then I was having problems with my Zapier. I don't know if you use Zapier, but trying to get things connected correctly so that people that enrolled like in one, like a Calendly call would automatically get put into a Google Sheet. And then I had like a subscribe button on my website that was not showing when you were looking on desktop. And so you could see it on the phone, but you couldn't see it if you looked at it from your laptop. And that'd been going on a long time. And I had asked my VA to look into it and they couldn't figure it out. And then I'd ask somebody on Fiverr to look into it and they couldn't figure it out. And Sunday morning I woke up, I just kind of thought, okay, I can't deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
So I slept on it for a couple of days. And then Sunday morning, I got this idea. I'm just going to Google problems with MailChimp, subscribe button. And actually I was able to find some help that told me I needed to go into the HTML, which I don't know how to do, print it out. And then you had to find these little words called clear and remove that and put show. And so I did it and it worked. It didn't look, the whole format looked different, but at least the button showed up. So I thought, that's good enough. I'm going with it. I know that's been one of my steepest learning curves over the last several years. Being in business for myself is the technology. And right now I'm trying to focus on more automations and productivity. So trying to have things so they move more smoothly. So I don't have to be like try to keep up with all these little details all the time. At least that's the goal. And so that seems to be where the most stress happens for me, is trying to juggle all of those little pieces to make sure that you mentioned the word perfectionist, and I don't like to use that word, but I'm sure that I'm very detail oriented.
Yes.
And I had worked with a new VA. I was trying to have a VA team and they were based in India, and I was communicating, I thought, very clearly about what I wanted to have done. And I had to correct them on the same detail 4 times. And so I thought, okay, this is not that complicated. I went in and took care of it myself. And I thought, I don't think this is going to be the right team. They're not communicating with me. They're saying it's done when it's not done. And so I was spending a lot of time doing that. So I guess the last few weeks, whether someone blamed it on Mercury in retrograde.
Retrograde, yes.
Yes. I thought, because I wasn't alone, I was hearing other people were kind of struggling with things not working, my gate opener for my apartment wouldn't work last week. This is all this same like week ago, so that's been the most recent. But typically I roll pretty smoothly during the day. And I've been doing this long enough that things, I kind of have a system down so that things work. But I do notice that when I don't get out and walk, of course, the heat has been so unbearable the last that it's been very difficult to get outside. But that's one of the ways, I guess, early in the morning to kind of clear space, clear my energy, and to get myself grounded is to go out and walk probably about 1.5 miles in the morning. And just when I do that, I do what I call a morning walking meditation. And so I'm just kind of turning everything over to God or to my higher power as I walk through that. Just say, I'm powerless over these things. And I just try to let go of all these things and then recognize that I can trust that the day is going to go well and that, all is well. And usually that's take a little time to breathe and get some inner, exercise. And then I feel better.
Tell me a little bit about the walking.
I probably get up, it's between 7 and 7:30 that I try to get out and walk. And usually if it's over 84, I try to not get out. What I'll do is I don't get my walking meditation in, but I have several meditation books that I will sit down and read and do. But I find that if I can get that adrenaline, that endorphins going early, like with the walking, that helps to kind of balance things out. And then I'm able to just kind of take the day as it comes and deal with one thing at a time rather than trying to accomplish everything. So I usually at night before I go to bed, I will kind of write down some, like maybe the top 3 things I'd like to get accomplished the next day. And then I can go to sleep because part of it is I don't have to try to keep remembering it. And one of the other things I've done to help manage that is I've started a notes in my phone. And anytime I think of something, I've got several categories and I will write it down. And then if I really need to put a time limit on it, I will set a calendar time for it to check that off as kind of a task. But other than that, it helps because otherwise it just kind of keeps swimming in my brain. I don't know if you listen to GTD, Get Things Done.
Oh, no.
GTD is a podcast, and I have started listening to that, and it's all about productivity. And it's nice. I forgot who the gentleman was that wrote the book GTD, but it really is about writing things down, and you have your main things, and then there's someday maybe kind of list.
David Allen.
So David Allen, that's it.
Yes, David Allen. I did read his book. It's a very good productivity book. There's some principles that I took from it, but some of it was just too involved, and how, you get things. I love the method though of that he did is like a stack, and you put your first task on top of the stack, and not until you get that done, can you move on to the next one. So yeah, that's good. So what do you like about
prioritizing? It's about prioritizing. I think many times I can get distracted by all of the little things, not take care of maybe the things that are the most important. So that procrastination that I tend to have is stressful.
Yes.
As much as I would like to think I don't have to do that, somehow it's just a habit. More of a habit, I think, than anything else, is that I will put off the things that like taxes. For example,
that's a beast.
That's a beast. And I spent, I don't know, several days a couple of months ago, because I had gotten an extension, and I spent several days getting all the numbers and stuff done. But I thought after spending that many hours, I did not want to fill out a form. I do not like filling out forms. And so I did finally, but I've got all the information done. And so I've got a friend that's going to, I think, help me tomorrow with that. So I think part of learning to ask for help is something that's been hard for me, but also something that reduces my stress.
I wanted to go back to something else that you said
Okay.
too, because you used an acronym earlier, VA, and I know what that stands for, virtual assistant. But tell me a little bit about that, and maybe if you would be so inclined to talk a little bit more about your business as well too.
Sure. I've been in business on my own since 2016.
Nice.
And I started this Clear English Coach. I had taught ESL. I've been in the academic world since probably 1989. So for a very long time, I've been teaching. So that was always a supplement to my former career, which was as a visual artist. I was an exhibiting artist, and so did commissions and hotel lobbies and things that were large scale pieces, installations, those kinds of things. And I stopped doing that main full time probably in 2010 or 2008, before I went to live in Thailand. But I had been always supplementing that art. For people that don't realize, you can graduate with a master's in fine art, which is a finite degree, like a PhD in studio arts, and there is no starting salary for people that graduate with that degree. I know a lot of young people, they go into engineering or something because there's a starting salary that they can count on. Well, in the art world, that's not the case, or at least was not my experience. So I've always taught in other academic things to kind of manage that business that I was in full time. I was teaching ESL, English as a second language, at University of Houston, and I've always loved other cultures. And that's one of the things that inspired a lot of my artwork, was the textiles from other cultures. I actually did weaving on a loom. And so my pieces were one of a kind tapestries or mixed media tapestries. So a very different type of art form than people usually think, oh, do you draw or paint? Well, no, I don't do either of those, but I do collage and mixed media. And so this love of other cultures was something that I'd always wanted to do. And when I went through my divorce about, it's been over 25 years ago, I started being a homestay mother, which meant students that were trying to learn to speak English that were coming to the United States would live with me. And so I would provide meals and a place for, room for them, and conversation. So I was doing this back in 1993, I guess. So a long time ago, I was already kind of involved in this ESL, but didn't think of it as being a future career. And so that actually helped me really appreciate other cultures and recognize, I had the world travel to me before I had a chance to travel to the other parts of the world. So that was kind of my introduction to recognizing that, communication and language was really important, and this other cultures to enrich my own life. So as I evolved into my own teaching pronunciation and not general ESL, which is English as a second language, it came because I was living in Thailand and was learning to speak Thai from 2008 to 2010. I sold everything except what I could fit in a 10 by 20 storage unit, and closed everything up, figured out how to set up a Skype phone number. At the time, I had a laptop so that my father, who was in his 90s, could contact me, in Thailand without having to pay long distance. And so it's amazing all of the things that you have to put in place and tie together and kind of put a closure to be able to live in another country. So to me, that whole experience was, in a way, really connected to my clients now who moved to the United States and are learning to really fit into American culture and want to improve their speaking. So during that time was when I recognized that, simple lifestyles are actually a lot less stressful than our own American culture. Because basically I wasn't working. I would get up in the mornings and just, walk and pick up my bananas from one, fruit lady and something else from another. And you mix with, just wander with people. But learning to speak Thai was kind of a goal for me. And I wanted to go to the market on Silver Street. And I could not pronounce the word for silver where they could understand it. And they kept saying, no, that's not right. No, that's not right. But they couldn't explain to me what I was doing wrong or how I could correct it to pronounce it correctly so that they could understand it. And that's when the light bulb went off in my head that this is what happens to my ESL students. They know their grammar, they know sentence structure, they know their sentences, but when they would speak, Americans go, huh, what? We couldn't understand what they were saying. Well, and because it happened to me, myself,
Yeah,
my
right.
own experience and how frustrating it is to not be able to communicate with someone when you are trying to speak the same language, that I realized that, oh my gosh, when I came back to the United States in 2010, I started focusing just on pronunciation and accent reduction. It's more of a refined skill, and it's not something the academic programs typically include in their curriculum, which I thought very surprising. But my belief is that it's an unconscious habit, that we learn this when we're babies and toddlers, and our brain doesn't have to think about it anymore. So it goes into the back of our, primitive brain. And so learning to be able to kind of tease that innate ability that we all have about speaking a language and create those new neuroplasticity connections between your brain and your muscles is what has become fascinating to me. So that's why I started focusing on that, and then left the university in 2016 to start this business. So I've been managing all of the business solo entrepreneur, and wearing all the hats and doing all the marketing and doing all the newsletters and all this other stuff. And I got to the point where I don't enjoy the back office administration stuff as much. And people kept talking about hiring somebody. Well, I was kind of afraid to hire somebody because of the expense, and again, training somebody. So, and letting go of control. Not that, well, maybe I have some control issues, but so I finally got the courage to get a VA, and they had contacted me through LinkedIn. And I thought, well, the timing was right. Let's give this a try. So a virtual assistant is somebody that I was hoping to be able to build a remote relationship with that could take care of some of the administrative duties, like setting up my new MailChimp newsletters, reoccurring tasks that don't take a lot of expertise, just take time that I could pay someone else to do, so that it would free me up to do like the feedback or the coaching that I do that's more specifically related to the way I've trained my ears and my knowledge. And so I've worked with them. I was on a trial period of about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they kept these were from India, and I don't have a problem with it being from a different culture, but our communication, I would write down really clear things, and they kept procrastinating to not follow up on an appointment, to talk with me, or to get the work done. And after that happened about a MailChimp newsletter, one little detail about correcting some description, and I had to correct it like 4 times, I just finally thought, this is more stress, this is more work than I need to deal with it. So I did terminate that relationship actually just 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
And so now I'm in the process of, again, going through the process of interviewing and connecting with somebody and starting a new, hopefully a new long-term relationship. I'd like to find somebody that I can build that reliability and connection with, so that once I get them trained, that can be done and I don't have to worry about it so much. So changes can be stressful, even good change.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing about that too, because I know eventually I need to look for a virtual assistant as well too. And so it's good lessons learned, to understand, like, how we, and for those that, don't have your own business, that is the number one thing. I follow another coach, James Wedmore, and James Wedmore says that if you're not serious about your business until you get a virtual assistant to take those things off of your plate, to be able to then free yourself up for those higher value things that you would like to do. They're not the tedious tasks or, the follow-ups and things like that, the things that, are absolutely necessary in order to continue to remain in contact with your clients. So, anyway, thanks for sharing that. I do have to ask though, what is it like working with you?
Oh, working with me? Well, Well, I've got several different versions. I've got some online courses that are pretty much self-standing. They're self-paced and timed. So people can go in and just work on those just as kind of an experiment. Like I've got one course called the 5-Day Accent Reduction Challenge, which is just $10. And it's kind of gives you the 6 ways that you can change your accent 50% immediately. And
Nice.
part of that has to do with mouth and tongue exercises. I have a YouTube channel, and so that's where I guess I've got a lot of my followers. I've got, I think, over 5,600 subscribers on my YouTube channel, which
wow, that's great.
Happy about.
Yeah.
And that's all organic. So for the people that don't know, I've learned so many more new terminology and new terms being in business for myself than I ever knew before, like subscribers and organic, which means it's like I didn't promote it. I'm not buying ads. People just find me and it's referred, or other people, find that. But part of being in business for yourself is visibility. And you have to be, people have to find you somehow.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of a carryover from the marketing part, or the visibility part is a carryover from my art background.
Yes,
because
definitely.
It's true that I recognize that, sending out postcards when you're going to have an exhibition, or when MailChimp came out, or when this online like newsletters, that was an amazing tool, because you didn't have to start so far in advance to put, address all the postcards, order the postcards, address them, put the stamps on them, and mail them so that they get to people in time before your opening. Whereas now it's immediate. You can send something out the night before or a week before, and it's so much easier. But part of that is learning that the email addresses are really important to collect, because we do not control social media. We don't control the algorithms of social media. They can change at any time. We can have followers, but we don't really. So I don't spend a lot of time on social media, except I'm learning to use LinkedIn and my YouTube channel, and then my MailChimp newsletter. So
I see.
A lot of these ways of being able to build that. So I have one-on-one coaching. I also have like Monday night, every month on the first Monday of the month, I do a live accent reduction coaching call. And so I had about 12 people show up. I had people from Nepal. I had people from China, from Canada. Where else are they from? Mostly from the States, from Mexico. And so that's actually promoted through Eventbrite. So Eventbrite, people can find that. And then I have people that will give me their email address, and I add them to that list and then follow up. So we did a lesson on the TH sound on Monday.
Wow, that's great. So it sounds like you're really hands-on, when it comes to, that's wonderful. That's good. Well, that's awesome. Well, I wanted to take a couple of things that you said, before, and kind of highlight them for people, because, this is our stress management podcast. And there's a couple of things I heard, earlier about, the meditation walk that you may do in the morning, depending on the heat, of course. And it sounds like you take some notes on your phone throughout the day as you think of things. And then at the end of the night, you take some time to kind of reflect and prepare for the next day.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you kind of do to help with your stress management? Having a business, and being everything, for the business is stressful. I understand that. But, what else do you do to, kind of deal with the stress, of it too?
Well, I think one of the things that's coming to mind is that, I have been fortunate to follow my heart with my work. I find that when things become so stressful that I don't enjoy the work anymore. For example, I used to teach at HCC, and I taught textiles and color and design and things that at one time was really, I enjoyed doing. And then it got to where it was like I could feel the tension driving to teach. And like, I thought, I'm not happy about this anymore. This is not fulfilling anymore. And I was able to have the courage to just go in, and rather than sabotage myself, but to go in and just be able to stop doing that and trust that something else will appear. The same thing like when I stopped with my art business for the full time, it got to where felt too stressful. I wasn't really generating any revenue or income. It felt, I hate to say this, guys, but it felt like a job. And
yes,
feeling like a job didn't really fulfill my passion or my spirit to be able to do it. Because when I'm passionate about something, when I'm excited about something, then it's kind of effortless.
yeah.
I mean, I've still got the work to do, but I really see how it fits together, and it doesn't feel like so much stress or strain. I'm not trying to force myself to do something. So I think for myself, it's really kind of having faith and believing that the universe is here to support us and that will guide us and listen to us if we are clear about what we need, but we have to be willing to take the risk to step out of our comfort zone, to step into the new area, even if it means, like when I came back from the States to the States, I didn't know for almost 5 years what I was going to do. I had gone back to teaching ESL, and I had started kind of experimenting with the pronunciation, but I was reliable. I mean, I relied on the salary from U of H at the time before I stepped out on my own. And that was that transitional stage. So I think sometimes to recognize that we're not going to stay the same through our lives. We really have these ebbs and flows of finding our way, but it's like learning to recognize that we have to, I think, follow our hearts, follow our, what the Spirit's kind of guiding us to do.
I love that. I love it. Thank you so much for giving us some, great tips on the day to day, and how to manage that. And then also, it's just very inspirational, for you to say, that you're following your heart, you're following, what you are meant to do. And I think that is just, something that a lot of people get stuck in, is that maybe they are, questioning where they are in their life, and, if they're stuck and if they're not really following the path they feel like they're going to need to follow, or, just maybe that they don't feel like they have the means to be able to, follow that. So it's good for you to talk about your transition, because you had a reliable salary and then you kind of just went into the abyss a little bit.
I think at the age of 25, I was self-employed at the age of 25. So from that age on, I have been always known that I could step out and find my own way. But part of that is being willing to try new things, to ask, to not be afraid, to step out into the unknown. And I think when we're younger, it's a lot easier than when we're older a little bit. We get more into a routine of having expectations of how things are supposed to be. So I think learning to recognize that for me, keep my overhead low, and being able to have my time as my own was worth the risk, or the not having a high income, not having a big salary. That was never something that really appealed to me, was the big house, the big car, those kinds of things. But being an artist at that time, most artists have to have a very, we don't have a very steady income, but we really are passionate about what we do. So part of it is you learn to sacrifice maybe those status symbols for the fact that you can follow your own dream. So I think in some ways you have to be an independent thinker for yourself and get still and really listen to your own inner voice. What is it that your inner voice wants to do, even if it's not what your parents are telling you should do, or job? Because more and more that becomes stressful when you're doing something that your spirit doesn't want to do, and you don't feel like you're on purpose. It's a job. And I can always get a job. If I need to make money, I feel like I can always get a job. But to be able to take the risk to believe in yourself, just like you, Samantha, stepping out and doing this podcast, and being able to go through the transition of maybe one position, one job to another, and trusting that it's going to be there, that you're here on this earth to serve a purpose. And you've got skills and talents that nobody else has exactly like you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that, my purpose in life is to help others. And I love that you said, that you were, since the age of, 25, you were self-employed. I got to say that, and I know a lot of people, are in this situation, that the shoulds, what they should be doing with their life. And it's because of what their parents wanted for them, or what, they felt like they should do because of what society tells them to do. And, in some cases, a lot of people, have a hard time, moving out of the underserved, communities, and, the lower income, brackets as well too, that um, doesn't enable them, to do what they would like with their lives. Right. And so it's a matter of, that struggle of, and I see it, as my role as well too, is, to help people in that struggle, as well, just to, help them to follow their passions, whether it is art, whether it's being in business for themselves, or, different areas too. So I love that you said that, because, that helps people. And I know I in my whole life, I've held myself back, from things. I had a chance to move to Russia, I had a chance to move to Poland, and
Oh,
I said no to both of those things, because I felt like I should stay in the States and get married. I should, have, children, I should do these things. And and absolutely love my son. I'm not going to say take it back like whatsoever, but it's those things that we should on ourselves all the time. I say it that way all the time. And I tell people, don't shit on yourself, but like,
yeah,
don't,
it's true.
yeah, don't hold back to, what, people think that you should do with your life, and it sounds like you really took charge of your own life, and you really, embraced your passion, and, everything. And I think that's so inspirational for a lot of people. Shared a lot with us today. You shared, a lot of, great things about, managing your day to day, to managing your business, how, people work with you, and, everything. So how do they find you on the web?
Oh, you can find my website is clearenglishcoach.com.
Great.
My YouTube channel is the same, Clear English Coach. Donna Durbin is my name and website. I'm on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is Donna Durbin, Donna. I have a little, where is it? Can't point and look at this thing at the same time.
Yes.
But I would be delighted to hear from people, because my passion now is to help, what would I say? Help people that are immigrants, people that are coming from other countries, learn to adapt and fit into American culture. They've already learned the language, but this is kind of this refined level of pronunciation to take away that sense of confusion, not only for them, but for their listeners, so that they can communicate clearly. Because really, without communication, I mean, we're all human beings. We're all struggling to create the same thing. And that's what I learned with my students, my ESL students that lived with me, my, homestay students as well, is that we're more alike than different. And that we all want the same things for our children and ourselves, to have a happy, healthy life, and to feel productive, and to feel like we're on purpose, serving, because that's really that's when I feel more happy, is that when I can help somebody.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate, all the time. And, we're about to move over to another segment, but before we get there, we got to take a quick break. And we'll talk to you all in just a second.
And now, the funniest thing happened. In this segment, take a break from your stress for a funny or unbelievable story. Take it away.
The abundance, the prosperity mind, consciousness, mindfulness. I actually had that played out in front of me when I traveled to Indonesia for the first time. This was after my divorce. First time I traveled out of the States by myself. And I was there for 6 weeks. And I mean, it was a convoluted story. I won't go into the whole story, but this was this manifestation, because I had a dream, or what I would call a vision, that I was supposed to go to Bali. And I didn't know why, but when I would talk about it, I mean, the tears just would flow. So to me, this was really powerful. I'm getting goosebumps, because it was so powerful when I tried to start talking about it that I would just cry. So I didn't
Mm-hmm.
question, but I knew that for some reason my spirit wanted me to do this. And I didn't know why. And guys, I didn't have any money. I mean, I had, half of zero is zero.
Mm.
When I got divorced, there was zero. After 22 years of marriage, there was zero. And I figured, but I had a little bit of savings, and I spent everything I had to go to Indonesia and to go to Bali. So the strange thing is that I was supposed to be on this Buginese schooner to travel around the islands to study the textiles, because textiles has always been what I call my carrot. My God kind of, dangles the textile in front of me, and I just follow along, because that's been kind of the language that speaks to me so strongly.
Yeah.
So when I got there and got on this Buginese schooner, I got so seasick, because we were supposed to go around these islands for almost 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got so seasick, but I was not alone. There was a woman named Kartika who was on the schooner with me, and she was seasick too. And we got put off on the island of Flores.
Oh.
I mean, and I'm going, I have no money. I don't speak the language. I don't really know what's going on. And I'm having to trust. I mean, let me tell you, God took me clear across the world to test my own my faith, I guess, is how I want to say it.
Yeah.
So she mentioned at the time that she said, if my paints come, then I'm going to rent a car and we're going to go across the island. Now, I did not know who this woman was. She was older than me, but I did not have any clue at who she was. And I'm thinking, her paints, what does this mean? But the next morning she comes to me and she says, okay, my paints come. Now, this is back in 1997. There were no cell phones. There was no communication. There was nothing of this. And I'm like, how in the world is this happening? But what I experienced was so different. The culture is so different in Indonesia, or especially in Bali, that she traveled me. She says, I will take care of you. I told her, I don't have any money. I don't speak the language. I don't know how I'm going to get home, or how I'm going to get back. So we got in this truck. We go around this truck. And so this abundance, prosperity mindset, I saw her looking intentionally to buy like an old man's bananas and stop the truck and go out and buy these bananas. And then I saw her buy some coconuts from another old man that's on the side of the road. Now, this is the way these people make a living, is just by selling these small little things. I saw her and I'm like, what is going on? She's intentionally buying these things from these people. And I'm going, I don't understand what's happening. We go to this, we wanted to go visit they have a volcano that's called Kalimutu that has colored lakes in it. And it's on the island of Flores. It's the same volcano that's on their money, on the Indonesian money. So she wanted to go there. So we took this trek to go find this little hotel that was close to this mountain. And we stop and she sends a driver in to find out if they have a room. And what this is little thatched roof cottages on the side of the river, basically. Oh, wow. I mean, this was very primitive. And so she sends a driver. He comes back and he says, Ibu Kartika, they don't have any rooms, but the owner wants to talk to you. And so the owner comes out to the car and she rolls down her window and she starts to talk to this young man. And he says, Ibu Kartika, about 6 years ago, you came to my village and you painted for us to help us because they had a monsoon and they had lost a lot of their, homes and stuff. And so she came to do a fundraiser for them. He said, Ibu Kartika, I want you to have my room.
Oh, wow.
So she doesn't know who this person is, but and I'm going, who is this woman that I'm traveling with that this man knows who she is? And she went and did paintings for her. Well, what I saw is that this was prosperity consciousness in practice.
Wow.
She's like, you pay it forward. So when we do things in advance, we don't know how that miracle is going to come back to us. But if we do that with that sense of abundance and trust and help other people and live with that kind of mindset, it does come back. So she was intentionally, what I saw her doing by buying those bananas and coconuts, she was buying, prosperity, the faith that it's going to come back and bless her in another way. It may not look the same way, but it's going to come back and bless her in another way. And I saw this happen that whole time I traveled with her.
Wow, that's great.
Talk about miracles. And so we were sitting in this little village of Benna, which is a megalithic village. She says to the universe, I'd like to stay here for a few more days because I'd like to do more painting. And I'm just sitting next to her and I'm going, okay, let's see how this turns out.
Right.
And because she's saying it out loud to the universe. She's telling the universe what she wants and what she needs. And the next day, now we're in this village, there's no phones, there's no anything. This man drives up and he said, Ibu Kartika, I found out you were staying here and I live in the next village. And he says, is there anything I can do for you? And she said, yes, I'd like to stay for a few more days, but I'm going to need a ride back. He says, I would be blessed. I would be honored to do that for you.
Oh, man. Wow. That's wonderful.
And I'm sitting there going, whoa. In Indonesia, when you go walking on the street, everybody greets you with Selamat pagi. They make eye contact with you. And it's like a blessing that the soul in me sees the soul in you.
Like namaste.
Everybody makes eye contact with everybody else. And it was an enriching. From our standards, it's poverty. They're poor. But on spiritual standards, they trust the universe will provide. So if nothing else, for me, that journey, that first step into that kind of not knowing what I was going to do with my life or whatever, really concreted my faith that when I get so bogged down into the little stuff, it's like, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. It's all small stuff. That it's that sense of spirit and connection and feeling alive, feeling like you're connected to other people, feeling happy about what you're doing, feeling passionate about what you're doing is really why we're here. So when I find myself getting stressed over those small things, those little things, I have to step back and get still and just get centered again and kind of go, what's important today? What's really important for me?
Right.
What do I need to do today? And maybe it's just, if you've read the books like Chop Wood, Carry Water, I mean, we're all human, but we're human having a spiritual, we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we can get all bent out of shape over these small little things, but I don't waste my time griping or complaining or spending a lot of time on that stuff because that's not how I want to live my life.
Thanks for listening to the Stress Mess podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And don't forget to tell a friend. The song for this podcast is Traveler by the talented Christian Weigand and voiceover work by David Gilbert. You can find more information about those two in the show notes. If you'd like to work with me, head on over to SamanthaElizabeth.com to book a free intro session. This has been a Be Who You Need to Be production.